opportunities. I've had all kinds of technical issues last 24 hours. So, hey, hope you got a good drink on you. I know we're a day off. It's kind of like we're going back in time. We used to do the show on Tuesdays whenever we were doing it for Warrior Poet Society Network. Which, by the way, I got to see John Lovell the other day, and hadn't seen him in quite a while. But at our White House event we went to, he and Nick Freitas both were there. It was fun, man. It was very, very, very cool. But at any rate, what I'm going to do tonight, it's not going to be long. I just wanted to catch up on a couple of things that were just too big to wait until next Monday. I had talked about some of these things on my radio program, and just wanted to dive a little further into them. So anyway, we're doing a little bit of a off the wall tavern tonight. So let me make sure that because of the issues I had last night, this is actually working. Before I spent last night, I spent 10 minutes talking, and man, I was on a roll. It was good stuff, and no one was with me in the tavern because it wasn't actually broadcasting. So let me make sure that we are in fact broadcasting tonight. Yep. Looks like we are live on X. Let me double check Facebook. And yep, we are a go. Okay, so good. All right, so I'm gonna just run through a couple of these things because it's it's kind of weird, man. I was campaigning in Washington State against this Joe Kent guy for our good friend Heidi St. John, who is a phenomenal gal. She and Jay are just they're trailblazers. They're people. They did this homeschool resource center in outside of Seattle, south of Seattle. Has Battleground, Washington in her area, which is a cool city name. Anyway, not cool as Constitution City, but cool. Anyway, we went up there and we'd known them for a while, been going to homeschool conventions, doing different things with them. And she was running for Congress. And so we went up there several times campaigning for her with Rob McCoy and other people. And this Joe Kent guy that she was running against just gave me the heebie-jeebies. I mean, I did not get a good feeling about this guy. Every time we were in the same room, he just seemed like a slime ball. I mean, I don't know a nice way to say it. I was very blunt on the campaign trail about what I thought about him. I thought he was very much a grifter and a fake, that he had been a Democrat and switched to run, that everything he said seemed, fake and contrived in order to take advantage of the, response to COVID and Trump, getting the election stolen, 2020, all this. Anyway, was definitely not convinced he was going to be a good congressman. And so we were already, of course, for Heidi, but man, it made us even more motivated. So we spent our own money. We flew up there multiple times, went out there and campaigned, did multiple events. Reagan went with me one time, and we did, he did the whole "Am I the Only One?" song to open events. I mean, we had a great time. Okay, I say a great time. It was ugly for Heidi. If you got a chance to listen to Wall Builders today, I interviewed Heidi, and she tells the whole story, and it's there's actually more there than what I remembered. I had gotten confused. I was sure that the wife, Joe Kent's wife, that was killed in by ISIS. I thought she was the one that was CIA. Wrong. No, so she was something, maybe Navy intelligence. I don't know what she did, but Joe Kent's the one that was CIA. So he was Green Beret apparently, and everybody talks about his military service, and that's why they gave him a pass in this campaign, even though it was clear he was lying about things. It was not good. So he loses. Well, he beat. There was 6 of them, I think, in the primary, which it's one of those goofy jungle primaries. Can't stand those things. Bad for. That is not the way to do elections. Okay, top 2 go to November, no matter Democrat or Republican, and so Joe and some Democrat made it to the November. And I think Heidi got 3rd, and Joe ends up losing in November, runs again 2 years later, starts saying a lot of things that, at some point I was like, okay, well, maybe I was wrong. Maybe this guy isn't as bad as I thought. He's saying all the right things, his tweets and his posts and everything. I was starting to go, okay, well, maybe there's something, maybe I was wrong. And then Trump appoints him in, what was that, January of 2025. And so he gets this position, counterterrorism. So at that point, he's hanging out with Charlie Kirk and all these people, and I'm thinking, okay, I must have been wrong about him. Well, nope. Turns out he's absolutely the Benedict Arnold with a microphone of our age. And not only has he stabbed the president in the back with this ridiculous resignation over policy that he advocated for. And even if he didn't, to do it in the way that he did and then give the left all their lies and then now start acting like Israel's controlling America and just all these conspiracy theory baloney, crazy Candace tinfoil Tucker stuff. It's just sickening. And then today, this is the stuff I had said last night that didn't go out to anybody. And then today he comes out and turns out he's going to testify in defense of Charlie Kirk's assassin. Are you kidding me? So he's so convinced. This is the problem. And Dan Bongino nailed it yesterday. This is the problem with these grifters, these people that they are not true believers. They are not patriots. They are not possibly not even actual Christian believers, but certainly not patriotic, lives, fortune, sacred honor. It's for the, good of the country believers. He may have been at one point. I don't, the type of service that he had, perhaps his wife being killed the way that she was. Maybe that, that is kind of a classic thing that it causes people to turn against their the things that they were for before. And I don't know, but I do think the grifter virus, as Dan Bongino described it, is real, man. It is so real. And this guy, like I said, I've pegged him as a grifter from the beginning. I'm not always right. My wife has great tuition. I don't always have as good a tuition as she does. But there was no doubt about this guy. But it was interesting to me that Bongino made it very, very clear, look, this is rampant on the right. So you've obviously got, this is what my friend Daniel Horowitz has called for a long time, Con Inc., conservative Inc., this machine of conservative, blogosphere, podcast sphere, people that are making a bunch of money, and they don't ever actually do anything. They don't ever actually move people to action. They don't actually do the hard work in the trenches of educating people and getting them registered to vote and running for office and training candidates and all the stuff. And he's right. It is rampant. And I didn't think 5 years ago that Tucker would be one of those guys. I didn't think that Candace Owens was going to turn into one of those people. Didn't even know who this Fuentes guy was. But Joe Kent, I thought would. That one I got right. Then, now you've got, and Bongino points out, Michael Flynn and all of these people that have started making a bunch of money and jumped out in front of the parade and acted like they're leading, acting like they've been doing this stuff forever. I've had conversations with a lot of these people in that crowd that are, they're acting like they've suddenly figured out how to save America and be patriots and bring back the Constitution and the Bible. And they quote the Bible completely erroneously. Like they'll quote verses that don't even, it's just so obvious they are not from our world, okay, from our, value system and from our, just our Christian, conservative, constitutional tribe, if you will. And I'm not saying you got to be an American or to be patriotic, but to take the helm of our tribe and to suddenly act like you're the leader of our tribe and that you have special information, which is what I thought Bongino nailed so well. All these people love to act like they have inside information. And now, you've got Joe Kent and the rest of these people acting like Charlie wasn't actually assassinated by this Tyler Robinson guy. And from the beginning, that has sickened me. These people that have created conspiracy where there is none. And there's so many of them. This Stu Peters guy, he did the video with the microphones claiming that it killed Charlie, and he got millions and millions of views. Total clickbait BS. It was so absurd, and people ate it up. And we got to stop being so gullible. We're so distrustful and so conspiracy driven. We're so convinced that that there's a smoke-filled room that's controlling everything, and that. And most people in the past have wanted to buy into the conspiracy theories because it made it possible for them to not have to do anything because there's all these these people are controlling everything. So why would I do anything? I mean, they're gonna, no matter what I do, they're gonna still control everything, and it's gonna be worthless. That's kind of what it's always been over the 30 years I've been doing this. But lately it's more than that. Now it's an ego thing. It's a I have information you don't have, and I'm on the inside, and we've got this thing figured out, and there's nothing there. There's nothing there. All of the stuff that they've made up about this trans furry nut job that killed Charlie, all of it is completely unproved. There's nothing there. There's no evidence there. This guy was a nut job that did what people had been on the left had been calling for. They wanted Charlie killed. They want me killed. They want Dan Bongino killed. They want anybody on the right that is speaking truth and fearless of them and says that what they're doing is evil and wrong or sick or weird, or that we should bring back insane asylums, or deport all of the people that aren't pro-America. When we say things like that, there are consequences for the left. And so they have reached a point where they literally think violence is okay, but that speaking truth is violence that is not okay. Actual violence they champion. So they've been after this for this type of thing for a long time. So of course they created the monster of Tyler Robinson, but not through some Israeli thing, not through even some coordinated Antifa, trans furry thing, just by the rhetoric and the hatefulness and the things that they say on their in their threads behind the scene, and that's what led to you're gonna have crazies. There's always crazies. There's always going to be people in the culture that need to be locked up because they're nuts, and we live in a free society, so there's going to be the possibility of them doing things like this. It's happened throughout not just America's history because of our freedom, but throughout history. So it is what it is, and to make it more than it was, that I said this on probably day 5 after the assassination, when all this junk started happening. I said, you're losing by taking your eye off the ball. You're losing the momentum that God was creating for us in revival and in patriotism and all the things that were coming, because Charlie had lived such an amazing life, and because it was so evil and wrong what had happened, and because it was done by a trans furry, and because of all these things, it was making people open their eyes, and they were listening, and we were having civil discourse, and it was beautiful. And these conspiracy nuts, these people that have to make it more than what it actually is, so that they're special and they're the only ones with the information, and they're able to get clicks and all that, they ruined it. They absolutely zapped the energy in the room, sucked the oxygen out of the room, created the division in our movement, and it disgusts me to no end. And I've said that about Candace and what she's done. And now here you've got Joe Kent just putting, I mean, literally the cherry on top for them, because here, counterterrorism guy, right? I mean, he looked into the Charlie Kirk thing, and he thinks that it's just BS. It's all BS. And this guy, if you watch that interview with Heidi St. John, or listen to that interview on Wall Builders, in fact, I may just go ahead and play it. If you haven't had a chance to see it, I could actually play the video tonight. It's not that long, 15, 20 minutes. When I'm done ranting here, I'll play it. And anyway, but if you watch that, she talks about the fact that he actually bragged about the fact that the CIA had trained him to be an agent of chaos. The CIA trained him to go into countries and act like he was part of something he wasn't, in order to sow chaos. Well, when he said that one time at one of the candidate forums, and it had to do with something else, I don't think he realized he was revealing himself. Jay leans over to Heidi, and you'll see this in the interview. She leans over to Heidi and says that's what he's doing to the Republican Party in Washington State. And then that's what he obviously did with the White House, and now with Turning Point and all the good people that are doing the good things that these grifters do not do. So anyway, that's the Joe Kent thing. I just had to I just have to speak out against that. I want you to know, if you're a Patriot Academy supporter, I want you to know that we are very cognizant of the fact that we are training and equipping some very talented people that have the potential to make the same mistakes and end up in the same boat as a Candace Owens or some of these other younger influencers, quote unquote, that they get a big platform and then they end up spewing anti-Israel stuff and all the other junk. We know that. We are cognizant of that, and we have become very purposeful about being careful who we platform and being careful who we push forward and who we train with all the best stuff that we've got, right? So we have a kind of a big end funnel. We start these students and we kind of watch as they go, and we are watching for that pride factor and that need to be loved that exhibits itself in the willingness to say or do things to get that itch, to scratch that itch, and we are dedicated to churning out a generation of leaders that don't have that, that aren't driven by that, that are driven by humility and a desire to serve God and a desire to honor Christ in all that they do and to defend liberty. Our mission will not allow us to squander the opportunity before us or to equip the enemy. And so just know that is something that I think sets us apart, to be honest with you, from virtually every other organization on the right that is trying to train up the next generation. We are cognizant of that, and that's part of the reason we have such an emphasis on biblical worldview, and that's why we put them in front of people that have a strong biblical worldview. That's why servant leadership is at the essence of everything that we teach, and that, you know, we've got the picture of, or the painting, a big, huge, blown-up portrait of George Washington resigning after the war because he was humble enough to say, I don't want to be king. I'm going home, going back to be a farmer. That George Washington servant leadership is what we're instilling here. So if you like that and you want to see more of that, then we need your help. Don't just complain about things or wish they were better. Give of your life, your fortune, and your sacred honor. Give of your time. Go sign up as a Constitution coach tonight if you haven't done it, and start a class in your living room with 2 people. I don't care, 200 people, whatever you can get, and be a part of the solution. So your life, your fortune. Yes, I'm asking you to start donating to Patriot Academy. We could train so many more of these young people if we had the funds. That's all it boils down to. We now have the facilities. We have the lodging. We have the training facilities. We have everything we need. We have the faculty, everything we need. We could do 4 times as many students next year as what we did this year if we had the funds. But we need the funds. We need the funds. So for the scholarships for the students, and so that's if that sounds of interest to you, please go to patriotacademy.com today. You can do a partial scholarship or whole scholarships, $15,000 for a student to come spend a whole year with us here at the campus, or close to a year, and you can sponsor one of them. So you can also send young people to learn more about it at our website, patriotacademy.com. And then this summer, we've got the shortened ones, the kind of the big end of the funnel, where we start the relationship with these kids to figure out, are they leaders that we want to invest a full year into, or multiple years into. We call that Leadership Congress. That's done in state capitals all over the country. So we'll have a lot of these in June and July. Our big one will be right here on the campus the last week of July, but we'll be in Colorado and Indiana and Florida and Delaware and Idaho and all these cool places. So patriotacademy.com. Get some young people going to those things. We got our military veterans one, our Constitution coach at the campus. Coaches are coming to do our constitutional defense course in April. If you're a coach and you haven't signed up for that, you should do that. And then this summer we'll do our military veterans leadership congress. So anyway, that's my commercial, because I know it's the counter to the Joe Kents of the world. It is literally countering them by raising up young people that aren't sellouts and traitors and Benedict Arnolds like that. Okay, before I go to your questions, obviously Iran, interesting. I will say it again. I don't care if we pull out and there's no solution. I don't care if there's no regime change, and some of the stated goals or things that we've dreamed could happen don't happen. What has been accomplished has been amazing, and I'm thankful that President Trump was willing to do it, to set them back as far as he did. I would love to see Iran truly changed. I don't know if there's good enough soil in Iran after 47 years to put the seeds of liberty there and them become a self-governing nation. I don't know the answer to that. I'm not an expert on that. If there is, and President Trump finds at the end of this 5 days of negotiation that it's worth pressing even further until better people take over, that whoever he's talking to, I don't know who it is that he's negotiating with, is not going to get rid of the Islamic regime, which is what needs to happen. Right? That's the big win. Right now we got a win, which is to set them back on their nuclear capabilities and also on being able to fund terrorism. That's a big win. That's worth it. I'm happy. It's all good. But if we can actually completely decimate the Islamic regime and show the world this is what Islam leads to, which that part of the lesson I think has been happening, and replace it with a secular government, or at some point a pure constitutional republic. No telling what it might be, a constitutional monarch. I don't know what they'll end up. They might go back to closer to what that was. Who knows? But it's going to be better than what it was, I think, and well worth the higher price of gas for the time period that we had it. And to say that Netanyahu is the one calling the shots, or that Israel is controlling President Trump, is such an insult to President Trump. Don't even bother me with that nonsense. This is going to be what has happened so far is in the interest of America. I want you to know we are America first, not America only. I am not part of the America only crowd. Patriot Academy will never be part of the America only crowd because it doesn't work. You cannot be just for whatever's going to happen between our borders. We live in a global economy. We live in a world where you can be across the world in 24 hours. I mean, you cannot be America only. It doesn't mean you have to be stupid about giving so much away that you destroy things at home. I would love to be able to pull back all of our people and our money and everything from around the world and only have it here and get the 37 trillion and more paid off and get stronger. That would be great, but we can't do that. It doesn't work that way. We would be destroyed. Our economy would be destroyed. It would backfire on us big time. So I think, at least that's my position. You might could convince me otherwise. Maybe show me that I'm foolish, that I've fallen for the neocons, military industrial complex, all of the things that I speak out against all the time. Maybe I'm actually a puppet of them somehow and I don't know it. I don't think so. I think what's actually happening is that President Trump is exhibiting the exact America first policy that I would do if I were in the White House. He recognizes on a world stage that we are needed to do certain things around the world that then benefit us in the long run, if for no other reason to prevent terrorism and things from being able to grow and fester and get worse. And so look at what's happened with the trade and with the tariffs and with now the massive changes in our hemisphere. I mean, it's all very, very positive. So who knows at the end of this 5 days what'll happen? Who knows if President Trump is going to press the gas even more? I know he wants to be done in the 4 to 6 week period that he said. There's no question that if it drags on into the midterms, it probably destroys us in the midterms and things get really, really bad. So it is a gamble. Absolutely, for sure. No question about that. But I think my gut at this point is that it's going to end right on time. And the part we can't control or even, really influence is whether or not the Iranian people have enough good soil and enough freedom desire in their DNA. I don't believe what I used to believe, like George Bush, that everybody yearns for freedom. I don't believe that. I think most people yearn for slavery. I think they would rather have someone else provide for them, solve their problems, and they're happy to just work away all day as a slave. That's more the nature of man and the history of mankind than what we've experienced here in the United States. And so those nations that have been blessed enough to have enough of that freedom DNA take root and have enough good leaders willing to sacrifice for those who are who don't have that, they're blessed, and Iran could have that. I don't know. The church is growing over there. There's massive revival over there. The few friends that I know from Iran have that, and say that there are others that have that. So praise God. I hope that happens. Last thing, SAVE Act. Yes, I'm frustrated too. It's disgusting to me that you have to convince people to pass something as common sense as only legal citizens get to vote. That just is insane that you have a major party in the United States with basically half the Congress that their position is to not deport pedophiles, rapists, and murderers, and to let people who are not U.S. citizens vote in U.S. elections. It's the most unbelievable transformation and national suicide that I think I've ever seen. And so the question again is, do enough of us have the freedom DNA to defeat that? And I think the problem is that we have representatives in Washington, D.C. that might have the freedom DNA, but they don't have the chutzpah, they don't have the backbone, they don't have the constitutional cojones to fight the battles that need to be fought. And the fact that we don't even know for sure who it is that's blocking the talking filibuster tells you that the system is broken. The fact that we have 41, a minority of senators able to control what happens, tells you that the system is broken. The fact that Chuck Schumer even has a voice at the table, the fact that he even gets to weigh in on whether or not we fund the removal of pedophiles, rapists, and murderers from our country, and is able to block that, and now apparently, if this deal got done today, I can't remember, I haven't seen if it got done or if they're going to do it tomorrow, this deal to fund parts of DHS, but not the most important part, which is the one that's supposed to be keeping our border safe and removing these criminals from our neighborhoods. The fact that he even gets to demand that tells you how broken the system is. Republicans have 53 senators. They shouldn't have to ask the Democrats for anything. It doesn't mean that they don't ever negotiate and have some collegiality, but the idea that you have to get their approval to pass anything, that they have to be on board, that you don't just vote, and if 50 plus the vice president outweighs 49 or 50, even if 3 Republicans voted with them, I mean, what is wrong with our math? What is wrong with our concept of majority rule? It's got to change, folks. It has got to change, and it's coming to a head right here. This is showing the American people that the whole idea of a 60 vote majority being necessary to pass anything from the Senate has been a terrible idea, and it's got to end. Let me end on some good news, and then wow, it's already 6:30. I was going to talk for like 15 minutes and be done tonight. Anyway, let me do the Supreme Court ruling and the other hearing. And then we'll see what you guys are saying in the chat. So go ahead and drop some questions in there if you want. So a couple of big cases this week. So they're both dealing with elections, and one of them is an actual ruling, essentially just saying that you have standing to file suit and to go to court if you suspect voter fraud or any other election, monkeying with the elections if you're a candidate on the ballot. There's a lot of people that should have standing in a situation like that, but certainly a candidate should have. And if you've been following me for 5 years, when COVID happened and then the 2020 elections and our audience exploded, I said this in November of 2020 and December of 2020 and January of 2021. I mean, I screamed it from the rooftops. How can you not have standing to sue if your name is on the ballot? If your state changed election law unconstitutionally, which is what happened in Pennsylvania, Georgia, and these other states, if your state did something unconstitutional that manipulated the election in any way or caused any question to occur in the election and you're on the ballot, of course it affects you. Of course you have standing. Absolutely you should be able to sue, and if you're able to prove that, get a new election. And the idea that we didn't let that happen in 2020 and 2021, that we didn't let Ken Paxton's suit go forward from Texas, who had an interest in the Electoral College outcome. We didn't let that congressman, I think it was in Pennsylvania, sue, and the guy in Illinois. I mean, all these candidates that were not allowed to get their day in court was insane. And this Supreme Court did that and upheld that 5 years ago. So thankfully, they're making it right. This Illinois one now says Illinois case that they decided 7-2 yesterday says, yes, you have standing. Okay, so now at least you can get into court. You can't be thrown out for this no standing thing, which is all the technicalities they used to steal the election in 2020 was really, really, that was hard to stomach. Okay, so that's good. That's really, really good. That's good news. Hopefully going forward, at least gets our foot in the door should they do the same thing in some of these states. Okay, then the other suit, the one out of Mississippi, I forget the guy's name, Boyce or something like that. This one is a little bit more specific, and it has to do with allowing mail-in votes to get there after the election day. So that should be a no-brainer. If the law says it's got to be there by election day and it doesn't get there, it doesn't count. That's the way we've always done it. And yet, in order to steal the election, in order to create chaos, in order to do all the things that they did, they started allowing counting after, allowed ballots to come in after election day and still count them. And basically, this is finally getting to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court is saying, no, you can't do that. If they go the way we think they're going to go. The questions were, though, I think really interesting in that they may go further than that. Because Alito was basically making the point we've made for years. I think I even say it in Constitutional Live. Somebody out there that's taken that more recently than me remind me. But I think I even point out that election day in the Constitution is election day, not days. And so Sam Alito made that point. He's like, Independence Day, Memorial Day, Election Day. It's one day. All of these are one day. The Constitution was clear about it being one day. And so certainly you should not allow for ballots to come in after the fact. But I would argue you also, shouldn't allow for all of the other stuff ahead of time, 2 months of voting and all of those things, unless you change the rules. I would actually support I would support a constitutional amendment that allowed for some kind of early voting. That you still got to show up, I think, physically in person, and the only way you get to do a mail-in ballot is if you have fit into these very unique, significant categories, like physically unable to go, or you're definitely going to be out of the county on election day, or there's already in most sane states election law some exceptions that allow you to do that. But other than that, you got to go on election day. And so if you want to put a constitutional amendment in place that says you can have a week of early voting so that it's not so crowded on election day to vote or whatever, okay, I could go for that. But you got to do the amendment. You got to actually do the hard work. You got to get people to agree, and you got to change that. You don't just say, well, it'd be a lot easier, so we should just do this, even though the Constitution is very clear that it's one day. So anyway, Alito has gone there, and I would fully expect that whatever the decision is out of this case, which I think they're definitely going to say that you can't violate what the statute actually says. Well, actually, in this case, they changed the statute, and they actually started allowing for it to be after election day, which is nuts to me that a red supermajority state like Mississippi would allow for that. And that is part of the problem. Is it's not just Democrats. You have Republicans that have done a bunch of monkeying with the election process as well, and not been willing to do the things to just secure the elections. But I see some light at the end of the tunnel. I think this is these are a couple of really good cases that could at least move us in the right direction, even if they just chip away at it. Clearly the SAVE Act would be ideal. That's what would in one fell swoop give us a lot more confidence in our elections and get rid of a lot of the cheating, which is why they're digging in and trying to prevent it from happening. But thank you to Mike Lee, by the way, for what he's done to fight for that. Okay, let's run over here to the chat, see what you guys have to say. Thank y'all for joining me, by the way, again on an off night. Thank you, Gail. I appreciate that. Tell you what, if you're thankful for the passion, then let me ask you to pray for more of it, okay? Because sometimes my passion tank gets a little low too. So pray for more of it. Pray that I stay strong. Discernment, man, and that discernment in Glenn. And I think you're going back. That was when we were talking about Joe Kent and some of the grifters that are out there. Can I just encourage everybody out there, not only for you, but the people in your life? My friend Nicole Tyson in Delaware says it better than anybody. She calls it your diet of information. And she's been harping on this for several years, that we need to be really careful where we get our information. And we've got to have the discernment, as Glenn is saying there, to know who's telling the truth and who'll tell us the truth even when it hurts and not tickle our ears. Maybe you need to think about that in terms of who your pastor is going to be as well. Okay, enemy's trying to wreak havoc any way he can. As Pastor Hank always tells us, do not discount the God factor. Yes, amen. And honestly, I was thinking about Pastor Hank today. God has inserted himself into the chaos. That's right. Rise up, America, and stop being gullible. We've been taking advantage of for years and years. I was thinking about Pastor Hank today because of the Iran thing, right? Because, like I said, I don't know whether or not the soil is good enough for us to put the seeds of liberty into that it will grow. Pastor Hank has had several prophecies dealing with Iran that clearly says that it is going to turn, and that it is going to end up being a nation that once again becomes a defender of liberty and freedom. Let's not forget, it's the Persians that funded Nehemiah, and that Esther was a part of. There's a lot of cool history there going all the way back. So God can use them again, and I think Pastor Hank has made that very clear that he believes that's what's going to happen. Let's see. Oh man, that's a good question. Do you prefer monthly donations or one time? Yeah, that's a great question. I love getting that question. That's not, do you want a donation? That's, which one would you like me to give? I appreciate that. I think if you already know for sure how much you're going to give for the year, then, wow, you know what? I don't really know which one I prefer. If it's, I'm assuming it's the same amount. Like, let's say you're going to give, $600 over the course of the year. So do you give, $50 a month, or go ahead and give $600 so that we can be using that to complete the mission? And strangely enough, I think actually a monthly is better, because assuming it's going to become the same amount, because there's a couple of reasons. One, it helps us. We know that, especially if you're saying in there it's going to be monthly, we're able to budget for that, right? If we get enough a certain amount of monthly donations, we're able to make a new hire, do a new project, a new program, whatever it might be. And then I love, as a donor myself, like when I give my monthly donations to groups, I like seeing that on my card. I like knowing that it just reminds me to pray for them. It reminds me that I'm investing in them. It reminds me that my life, my fortune, my sacred honors is being invested there. So that's part of the reason I like the monthlies. Now I will say there's times where people get they sell a house or a car or a business or an inheritance or whatever, and so they've come into a lump sum, and so for them doing a tithe to their church and maybe a tithe to something like Patriot Academy, it makes sense. And so then it's a one-time gift is better for them, and for us it's amazing. We've had several of those over the last year that have been just incredible, like just the right time. I'm learning to walk in faith more and more because I'm a planner, business planner, and when you have a vision for what you want to happen, I wanted Independence Hall built by July 4th, 2026 for the 250th, and it hadn't happened. We hadn't raised enough for that yet. So I have my goals of when I'd like certain things to happen by for the campus and for Patriot Academy. They don't always happen in my timing. God's got a different timing, but man, he has always come through when it really got close and it really got tough. And we have that. Sometimes we're month to month around here, and we've had times where we were very, very concerned, and times where we had to cut back and let people go or not do a project or whatever it might be. I mean, anybody that's owned a business knows how that works, or a ministry or a church. It happens. And so over the last year, there's been multiple times where people have sold a business or had an inheritance or sold a house or something, and they made a significant gift to Patriot Academy right when we needed it in order for some project to get launched, or even just to meet payroll that month, or whatever it might be. So that's a long answer to your question, but I didn't think I would have to think about it that much. But there's literally times I'd rather it be monthly, and times the one time makes sense. Thank you for asking, and thank you for whatever gift you're going to send. I appreciate that. Let's see. Yeah, Tony, great point. 76er by giving monthly or whatever the budget allows. Charlie made a good point. Fight as hard for freedom as. Oh, this is so good. Thank you, Josh. Let me read what Josh said. Charlie Kirk made a good point. Fight as hard for freedom as the anti-American fascist Democrats want to destroy America. It's so true. We have not met force with force for so long. They have been scratching and clawing. I've said this for years. They've been scratching and clawing for now close to 100 years. When I first started saying that, it was 80 years. Now it's 100 years. They've been in the fight. They've been willing to do whatever it takes. Look at what the Islamists are doing to America right now. They're uprooting themselves from wherever they are and coming here, not just because America is the best place on the planet to live. I think a lot of these people are not even motivated by the money and convenience and technology and the blessings of prosperity that we have. They are motivated to dominate. They are here, have moved their life here and doing the things that they're doing here in order to overtake America, in order to destroy what we have. So they're willing to do so much more than what we in the past have been willing. That's why I say lives, fortune, sacred honor, because in order to meet force with force, in order to do, if I said it right, fight as hard for freedom as the anti-American fascist Democrats want to destroy America. So we fight as hard to defend what we have and the liberty we have as they're fighting to destroy it. And frankly, we should be fighting even harder because we're defending our home turf. We're defending what God blessed us with. We have a stewardship responsibility here as well. And so, yeah, I think that's why I keep saying it. Lives, fortune, sacred honor. Let's fight as hard to defend what we've got as they're trying to destroy it. Here in Maine, our governor brought in ranked choice voting. This is Valerie. Here in Maine, our governor brought in ranked choice voting, which a lot of us feel is and has been manipulated to work in the Democrats' favor. What are your thoughts on ranked choice voting? I will be very blunt, Valerie. I hate it. It's terrible. Look at in Alaska, it's awful there. It's awful where you are. It's confusing. It discourages people from voting. There are some well-meaning people that actually thought that ranked choice voting would create more civic mindedness and more people would show up to vote. All you had to do was think about this for a minute to realize that wasn't going to happen. It's so confusing. People don't understand it, so they just don't vote, or they only partially vote. And it's a mess, and it absolutely, again, goes against majority rules. If it is not a, we should not be afraid of someone being able to raise more money or spend more money if it's their own money or whatever in order to win an election. We should not be afraid of someone working hard and getting more people involved. The fact that we do all this manipulation in order to give everybody a voice or whatever it might be, and to have more candidates run is really ignoring that anyone in this country can run for office and win. We have a two-party system for a reason. The multi-party systems don't work well, and you absolutely have a chance. I think Texas has the best, and there's some other states that do it just like us, but there's so many different systems out there. I can't remember who does what, but I think Texas has a very logical. This just makes sense to me, which is okay. You pick the party that best represents your values. You can be a Republican or you can be a communist. Democrat. All right. So you pick your party, and you can run third party. I mean, a third party can win. It's very, very difficult, but it's not. It's so rare that let's not even go there. You pick your party, and if you're left leaning and you want more government, you want government making more decisions, and you think people are too stupid to self govern, and you hate God, and all the other things that Democrats stand for, and you want to chop off genitals of children and all these evil things that they fight for, then you go run in the Democrat Party. If you believe that people should be self-governing and that there should be way less government, and government should only do what only government can do, and the things that we tell it can do, and even if you disagree on how much of that there should be, the Republican Party still the place you should run. But then within, and by the way, if you're a Democrat and you think you shouldn't cut genitals off of children, and that you shouldn't micromanage quite as much, but you want some more of the social programs, or maybe there's some other Democrat policy that you're for, you go run in the Democrat Party and defeat the nut jobs in your party in the primary, so that we Texans have a better option in the fall of two sane people like it used to be when I first got involved, instead of right now. So back to you pick which one you're going to run in. So in the Republican Party, you often have a constitutional conservative, Christian values person, and then they're running against more of a maybe moderate kind of establishment, meaning they're more interested in the money and the power and the systems, and they're not as much faith-based driven, and they're not evil, but they're driven in some different ways, and not going to be for all of the things that I would be for. And so usually that's the fight in the Republican Party. And so you have your primary, and you figure out in that district or for the whole state who's going to win that battle and then represent the Republican Party in the November election. And the Democrats have their battle for either having a lunatic like Talafrico. I'm borrowing that from John Amanchuki and giving him credit. Next two times I use it, and then it's mine. Because it's Talarico, but Talafrico is more descriptive. So the Democrats decided, and they really only had freak options this time. It wasn't that long ago that the Democrats had sane people running in their primary, and it caused, or even a Beto O'Rourke, who sounded sane initially. Remember, he didn't initially say, we're going to get rid of your guns, we're going to do all this crazy stuff. He wasn't initially crazy. Initially, he sounded like a normal guy in the middle. And so he goes over into the Democrat primary and mops the floor with these crazies, and then comes out of that primary and gives Ted Cruz a real run for his money. And so the Republicans decided Cruz was the guy. They decided that Beto O'Rourke was the guy, and it was a closer race because of who Beto O'Rourke was saying that he was. Now, eventually we found out who he really was. I don't think he could ever get that close in Texas right now, again, because now we know who he is and not who he would paint himself or claim himself to be. But when in both of those elections, the primary election and the general election, you have to get 51%. There's none of this 10 people run, and so you get 20%, but everybody else gets 15 or 16, and now you win with 20% of the vote. I can't believe states do that. I think that's nuts. There's none of this, ranked choice and all this. There's not, certainly not. Republicans and Democrats, 5 of each go into a jungle primary like they do in California and in Washington State, and the top 2 go to November. And now the people of the state only get to choose from maybe 2 Democrats, or only get to choose from 2 Republicans instead of having 1 of each. So in Texas, I think we've got it right. You duke it out in the primary. If you don't get 51%, then the top 2 in the primary run against each other, and then one of them gets 51% and goes up against the Democrat in the November election. That makes sure that you have to win the majority rules. You have to win the majority of the people in your party that you're going to represent, and then you have to win the majority of the people in the state. And so I just think that makes sense. I think ranked choice voting. Back to your question, jungle primaries have messed this thing up and made it complicated and bad. So anyway, that's my take on that. Thanks for asking. All right, let's see. Will we be able to see that Patriot Brew hat for? Oh yes, thank you for asking about that. That is one of many. In fact, let me just grab. I'll tell you what, these Patriot Academy kiddos that we have working in our new print shop have created some incredible stuff. Now, of course, the hat of epicness is the one that everybody's been getting for the last 5 years. That's our favorite hat of all. But we made the Flashpoint Television Network hats right here in our shop, and then we've got our Patriot Brew hats. I had a ton of other hats in my office, and I think I took them all over to my house. Yeah. Anyway, yes, this will be available. I don't want to speak out of turn, and Trey's not here, and he runs all of the details, but I think we're going to be launching our merch shop online in about a month, and it might even be by the end of this month, but I think it's in a month, and this is just one of many. So I'm talking hats, hoodies, shirts, cool logos, 250th designs, Patriot Brew, Patriot Academy, Patriot, all kinds of cool stuff. So yes, please be thinking about, make that part of your budget for whoever you got birthdays for coming up, or Christmas in the fall. All of that supports Patriot Academy and helps build the campus and employs the Patriot scholars. So while they're here learning and getting equipped with all the things I was talking about earlier, they need to work for those groceries. So that's one of the jobs that we have, is in our print shop and embroidery shop. And so we'll have more shirts and things like that available as well. Thank you for asking. Great question, Josh. Thank you for praying for more passion. Oh man, Rhonda, I'm so glad you asked about that. The Great Awakening movie is coming, and it is going to be phenomenal. Let's see. So yes, in fact, not only have I heard about it, I've got to see it, and so I get screeners all the time for because of Wall Builders or the Tavern or some of our other radio programs. We get to see a lot of the stuff before it comes out, and I don't always watch it because sometimes I think it's going to be cheesy or whatever. But this one I had to watch. Just the trailer alone is incredible. There's a scene in the trailer. So the movie's called A Great Awakening. It's produced by Sight and Sound. So if anybody's ever been to Lancaster or Branson or seen one of their big shows, they're amazing. I've only seen them on television. My daughter's gone to the ones in person several times, and they're incredible. So these folks are very good. They're very talented at what they do. And so this movie that they made is about George Whitefield and Benjamin Franklin, and it's the relationship of those guys and the influence that Whitefield had on America. Now, if you followed me for very long, or David Barton for very long, David taught me this a long time ago. I mean, Whitefield had so much influence on what America became. He did 18,000 sermons up and down the colonies. 80% of America heard that man speak. He would speak to crowds of tens of thousands, and Franklin couldn't believe that people could hear him. And so in the movie, they even depict that story where he shows how many people could hear this booming voice of this guy. And what I love about the movie is it starts back at the beginning, and you kind of get a little insight into how he got that booming voice. It's awesome. But anyway, in the trailer, there's a scene where Franklin's grandson is asking him, they're going through a bunch of papers, and they have some of Whitefield's papers. And he asks him who this is, and Franklin's telling him about him. He says, found it interesting that he hung out with a pastor because didn't think of Franklin, his grandfather, that way. And he said, was this pastor part of the revolution? And the pause is perfect as Franklin looks off, and then Franklin looks at his grandson and says, George Whitefield was the revolution. Ooh, I get goosebumps just saying the line. So incredibly well written movie, incredibly well produced. There's only one scene that I thought was a little bit maybe cheesy, but the rest of it is outstanding. I mean, multiple times in tears. Powerful. And the story that nobody's told, that in this way, there has not been a theatrical telling of Whitefield and his relationship with Franklin and the Constitutional Convention, all the way to the end. Now, listen, anybody out there that's ever heard me speak, you've heard me recite from memory Franklin's speech at the Constitutional Convention. It's one of my favorite things to do and to talk about. It's such a pivotal moment that drives home the fact that this nation was, in fact, founded on a belief in freedom from God and submitting that to God. And so the whole movie hints at this, and I'm not going to tell you the ending, but it's awesome. It's awesome. So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. April 3rd. What is today? So today is, it's not this weekend. I think it's next weekend is opening day. Please consider going. Please plan parties, groups. Go. Let's make this a blockbuster. Number one, because it's an amazing story from history, and as the producer told me when I interviewed him, what if we got 80% of America to see George Whitfield again? What a difference that would make. So it's a great, great movie. Go see it April 3rd. The website is agreatawakening.com. Let me make sure I've got that right. Agreatawakening.com, not greatawakening.com. Watch the trailer. The kid that plays Whitfield does incredible. The guy that plays Franklin does incredible. It's I'm telling you, you will be so glad you did it. And I think you can go ahead and get tickets online and plan your day. So April 3rd in theaters. Thank you, Rhonda. I had totally forgotten about that. I think that interview with him aired on Wall Builders, gosh, maybe 2 weeks ago. It might have been last week. But that would be a great one. And I think I saw let's see. Nope, sorry, I missed it. All right. Okay. Wow, folks. Sorry I went so long. I don't want to compete with my friends at Flashpoint. I'm not on Flashpoint tonight, but you should still go watch. You got 5 minutes to sign off and sign over there. Thank you for joining me on an off night here in the tavern. I'm sorry about missing last night, but I appreciate you joining me. Hope you have you some Patriot Brew. So later you'll be able to get the hat, but go ahead and get the coffee now and have a great night. I'll see you next Monday night right here in the tavern.